Hi, Charles of SirBookSage, and this is my September 2017 wrap-up. September was an interesting month for me. It's the month I discovered BookTube and decided to join in on the fun. And the first thing I read as part of BookTube was the short story The Sentinel from this Arthur C. Clarke collection of short stories. This is a book put out I think it was probably put out a while ago, but this particular printing, I think it's from 1985. And it is Expedition to Earth. And I read the last story printed in here, which is The Sentinel. And it's a story published in 1951 originally about an expedition on the moon discovering what clearly is an alien artifact. It's the story that eventually would grow into 2001: A Space Odyssey. But this was like the first iteration of the idea of what he would eventually develop. Part of my September BookTube launch was to dive right into the I Sat Rat Read-A-Thon, which was the I Suck at Read-A-Thons Read-A-Thon put together by Sam's Nonsense. And most of my reading in September was centered around that. Smallest book on the shelf was one of the sort of challenges, and I read ARS Magica by Judith Tarr. Now, Judith Tarr is one of my favorite authors. She's very high on my list. I have a lot of her books, love everything of hers that I read. Now, this is an interesting one. This is actually based on a real-life person, the man who would eventually rise through the church to become Pope Sylvester II. And there are major events that are recorded throughout of his life that we know about, some from his own letters that he wrote, correspondence with people. She took the real-world events of this man's life and added magic to it to create an historical fiction. Which I thought was a really cool idea, to take something real, a real person, real events, but weave magic to create almost like an alternate world. And you follow along. So the book jumps to these major periods of his life. So it's not just one straight plot. So you follow him on his progression. I'm a big fan of her work. I love her writing style. Her writing style is a little different. She can sometimes do very short, clipped sentences. The way she crafts sentences is a little different from particularly a lot of other fantasy writers who, there are some writers who could take, 3 pages just to walk across a room. Her writing's very economical, and I just like the way she puts things across. But I really, really enjoyed this. I've had it on my shelf for a long, long time, and I was glad to have the Read-A-Thon as a good excuse to finally dive into it. Another thing I read, particularly also for I Sat Rat, I ended up adding my bonus challenge for myself, which was read the smallest ebook. And that was Of Sorrow and Such by Angela Slatter. This is an interesting little book. It's basically about a witch, sort of a witch who lives on the outskirts of a town. And people come to her for potions. Some of them come to her for medicine. They don't really know what she is. But the ones who do come to her, knowing what she is, come to her for magic. Whether to protect themselves or to punish somebody else, all various motives. And the main character's motives are a bit gray as well. Main concept is she has to hide who she is because the society there will basically kill her. They kill witches when they're exposed. So she always runs that risk of, should I help this person or not, because it may expose her. And naturally, an event takes place, she ends up having to help somebody, and it threatens her very existence, and it goes from there. Really interesting thing about this book is it's written in first-person present tense, which is writing style you don't normally see. And it works very, very well for this story. If this were to be fleshed out to a full-blown novel, I don't know if that first-person present tense would hold up over that length of material. But for this short story, it works. It fits it to a T. I thought it was a really good choice. I really, really enjoyed this. And I think from what I've seen online, just doing a little research on it, some of the characters that appear in this short story have appeared in other things she's written, because I think she writes a lot of shorter works. So I'm going to have to go and look for those. Next up was an I Sat Rat challenge, and that was to read a graphic novel. And I read Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jonny Sun. This is just a magical little book. It's basically an alien is sent to Earth to find out about humans, because they want to know what's the deal with humans. And so he travels, comes down, and meets all sorts of interesting interesting things and learns a whole bunch of life lessons. And the book is filled with little, just magical little things. I loved this book. This was something that I've been wanting to get since it came out. And when I saw the graphic novel challenge, Barnes & Noble had it in their graphic novel section. So I took it and I read it, and I'm so happy I bought this. The rest of my reading for the month all centers around a particular epic fantasy series I've been in the middle of for a while. And that's the Crown of Stars by Kate Elliott. When the month began, I was already well into book 5, The Gathering Storm. It's a pretty big book. The longest one in the series. And I had, by the time Eyes That Rat rolled around, I had about 270 pages to go. So I finished that off in that week. And then I ended up reading in its entirety book 6, In the Ruins. A little shorter. And I got about 120 pages or so into the final book, Crown of Stars. And I'm really enjoying this series. Looking forward to finally finishing it. I had started reading it a long time ago. Didn't finish, not for any lack of interest, just life. And I was happy to finally get back to the series around everything else I've been reading. I've been working my way through this series. Hopefully I will finish this month in October. I have other reading things I'm doing. I have a whole October TBR. I'll link that down below. I'm reading a lot of horror stuff, so I might need breaks from that throughout the month. So this is what I'll be coming back to. I'm actually reading these on ebook, but I have the physical book collection, so I figured that would be easier to show you here. If you were to come to me and say, Charles, out of all the books you read this month, give me one that is a must-read for me. Which one of those do you say I have to read if I'm only going to choose one? And I would have to go with Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too. Because it is just such a magical little book. And for those who actually like to color, I've seen a lot of people online coloring theirs in. There's a lot of things you can color in here. And the author's been resharing out a lot of those on his Twitter account. But yes, so this is my 5-star recommended read for the month of September. And that's pretty much a wrap. October is here. I'm actually recording this on Sunday, October 1st. I already started my October TBR reads at midnight before I went to bed. And now I'm going to go dive back into those books now. And I'm going to go scare the crap out of myself. I hope you had a great September. I'll be looking forward to your September wrap-up videos. And please like, subscribe, leave a comment if you've read any of these books or are interested in reading any of these books. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Here's to a great October. Happy reading.